Fox News alert. I just spoke to the President of the United States. I have some new information and breaking details to share about tonight's what is historic air campaign. Now, tonight, Iran's nuclear ambitions, they are officially dead. It appears the United States just completely obliterated Iran's top secret Fordow nuclear facility with 6 huge bunker buster bombs. It was originally speculated that you would only need 2. It turns out they used 5 to 6 dropped from America's stealth B-2 bombers. And that's not all. 2 other major Iranian nuclear sites, Natanz and Esfahan, were wiped out with 30 Tomahawk missiles launched by American submarines some 400 miles away. Everyone is out of harm's way for now. That does not mean that American assets in the region are not at risk, and we are monitoring the Iranian response or potential response all throughout.
من هدف مشروع ایران هستند. آمریکا با این اقدامی که انجام داد علیه ایران و حریم هوایی ایران را شکست و جنایت علیه ایران انجام داد دیگه جایی در منطقه غرب آسیا نداره. آقای رئیس جمهور آمریکا شما شروع کردید و ما تمومش خواهیم کرد.
The other thing I can point out, Brett, is that this is an operation in the last 18 years since I've been at the Pentagon. I've never seen such operational security. There was nobody speaking about this, any of the preparations. There was a complete lockdown, almost a blackout of information for the last few days. I'm sitting here in the Pentagon right now. I can tell you the hallways are empty, and all of the information is coming right now out of the White House. That is a significant achievement because there were no leaks about the timing. Now, sometimes I think those who, a lot of the flight trackers, the open source intelligence flight trackers, that flight radar did indicate some of the when the B-2s took off from Whiteman. But again, nobody really expected that it would take place this evening. If you looked at the moon schedule, you might have had a clue because it was a waning crescent and almost a new moon on the 25th. So it would have been very, very dark over Iran tonight, and you need that in order to bomb. That's the ideal condition for something like a B-2 that is, yes, it's stealth, but it still has to be escorted in case any Iran were to put up any planes or there were any opportunities to fire on those B-2s, which are such valuable and very, very special planes. Only the U.S. military has this kind of weaponry and this capability. No other country in the world could have carried off what occurred tonight at those 3 uranium enrichment sites in Iran.
Yeah, Jen, you're exactly right on the operational security here and the fact that there were obviously some red herrings, and in a world where decisions are made and the world digests the decision even before it's made because of social media and everyone's watching everywhere, this was a pretty amazing operation. When you start thinking that the president said within 2 weeks, we are 2 days from within 2 weeks, and this happens with a post on Truth Social and no other word really getting out ahead of that is pretty stunning.
But the U.S. taking a significant step, and I will note that I had the chance to ask the president yesterday very specifically how this moment was different than the decision of a previous Republican administration more than 20 years ago to strike over questionable intelligence about weapons of mass destruction. And he said that he knew that they were building a nuclear weapon. That is in contrast to the assessment of his own Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who suggested that the U.S. intel community did not have that same intelligence. Jose?
And Vaughn, during that conversation that you had with the president, he essentially said that his Director of National Security was wrong in her assessment that Iran had not yet gotten to the point where they could either build or complete building a nuclear weapon.
Nevertheless, we were reporting and we're hearing that U.S. stealth bombers had been moved closer to the area, to Diego Garcia, which is it's owned by Mauritius. It's got a British base there, and that has been a base in the Indian Ocean that would allow American bombers to be within much closer striking distance to Iran. And as the president has said, it looks like the US bombers have taken place. So as we were reporting again, it was the likely the B-2 stealth bombers, which is the only bomber in the world that's capable of carrying these MOPs, these massive ordnance projectiles, these very heavy bombs. But what makes them specific is they're able to dig into the ground. In other words, they don't explode the second they touch the ground. They physically dig down into the land and then detonate. And because the depth of Fordo was so deep, it was felt that this was needed. Now, Israeli officials have been making clear to me that if President Trump decided not to act or delayed his decision, that they would act anyway. And we have to wait and hear from Israeli officials what their role in this is. It is possible, of course, that this would be a one-off strike. I think that's less likely.
I think we're also talking this morning about potential unforeseen circumstances, but repercussions. There'll also be foreseen repercussions. The first one is from the beginning, Iran was saying that if the United States entered this conflict, whether it was through missile strikes or even defending Israel from incoming missiles, let alone this, that Iran would respond, and it would respond against United States military assets in the region. There are a lot of United States military assets in the region. There are even more now. It's not just the B-2 bombers that have been moved in. There's now a second aircraft carrier group that has been moved in. Lots of refueling aircraft, lots of fighter aircraft have been moved in. But that's on top of the thousands of American military personnel who are permanently stationed there at bases that are dotted all over the Gulf and around the Middle East. They're now targets.
I mean, a perilous decision for the US, not just because of that Iranian or the prospect of Iranian retaliation, but also Donald Trump personally, right? He won the White House on this idea that he'd keep America out of these conflicts. He scoffed at the idea of American interventionism. Sounds like the complete opposite is happening now. He's being dragged further in to these conflicts.
We're going to see what that period of time is, but I'm giving him a period of time, and I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
But so far, there haven't been any breakthroughs during talks in Geneva and Turkey. Iran's foreign minister said his country won't negotiate with the U.S. while Israel's bombardment continues.
Iran is ready to consider diplomacy once again, and once aggression is stopped and the aggressor is held accountable for the crimes committed.
The foreign minister adding that if the U.S. gets involved in the conflict, it would be, quote, very dangerous for everybody. Reed Binion, King 5 News.
And again, that breaking news, the U.S. has now gotten involved. Trump will speak around 7 p.m. our time. As the conflict continues, Iranian Americans in Western Washington are speaking out.
And Israel had seen that as an existential threat, that having dealt with the other so-called enemies in the neighborhood, dealt with Hamas, dealt with Hezbollah in Lebanon, in Syria, you've had a change of regime, that it was actually Iran was the one remaining piece of the puzzle. And in order to ensure the safety of the state of Israel, then they had to be sure that Iran was no longer capable of being within weeks of producing potentially weapons-grade uranium.